There's a certain kind of silence that only comes with age, not the quiet of an empty room or the hush of a snowy morning. I'm talking about the silence that fills a house when the kids are grown, your spouse is gone, and your bones ache just enough to remind you you're still here. It was in that silence, on a gray Tuesday in November, that I decided to climb up into the attic. I hadn't been up there in over a decade. My knees didn't care for ladders anymore, and truth be told, I wasn't looking for anything in particular. Maybe I was chasing ghosts. Maybe I was just bored. Or maybe I was looking for a piece of myself I'd lost somewhere along the way. The attic smelled like dust and memories. You know the smell. Cardboard boxes, old wool blankets, pine wood beams baked in summer heat and forgotten in winter chill. Ruth and I had always said we'd clean it out someday. But someday has a nasty habit of turning into never, especially when cancer comes knocking. I found myself moving boxes, wiping off cobwebs, trying not to sneeze. Most of it was junk. Faded Christmas decorations, baby clothes no baby could wear anymore, albums no one remembered the songs to. Then, in the far corner, half buried beneath a broken lamp and a box of VHS tapes, I saw it, a wooden chest, small, maybe the size of a toolbox, the kind you'd imagine a pirate burying somewhere in a beach cave. It had a rusted latch, and the letters R+M carved into the side. I ran my fingers over them. Ruth and Michael. Us. My throat tightened. I unlatched the box. Inside, everything was carefully arranged. Old love letters. Photos of our first road trip in '63. A ticket stub from a Simon and Garfunkel concert. Her wedding veil. And then, at the bottom, an envelope. Unopened. Yellowed. Fragile at the edges. It was addressed to me. From Mary Ellen Harper. The name hit me like a freight train. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Mary Ellen. If you've ever had a first love, the kind that burns brighter because you're too young to know what to do with it, you'll understand. We met in the summer of 1964. I was a teenager, angry at the world, trying to outrun my father's shadow. She was the daughter of the local hardware store owner. Red hair like wildfire, a laugh that made even the crankiest cashier smile. She smelled like lavender and trouble. That summer, we swam in the lake behind Thompson's farm almost every evening. We'd lay in the grass and name constellations, pretending we'd someday travel the world. She wanted to write poetry in Paris. I wanted to drive the highways of California with the windows down and the radio loud. We made plans. We made promises. And then I broke them. I left town in July 1965 after a blow-up fight with my father. Didn't tell anyone. Just packed a bag, hopped on a Greyhound, and vanished. I never said goodbye to her. Never wrote. Never called. And apparently never got her letter. I held the letter in both hands, careful not to tear its delicate edges. The paper was soft from age, nearly translucent in places. My name was written on the front in looping cursive that I'd recognize anywhere, even after 58 years. My fingers hesitated at the seal. A part of me didn't want to know what was inside. Maybe it was better left unread, a relic of a life I once lived. But another part, the part that still remembered the way she looked at me under the stars, needed to know. I slid a finger under the flap and opened it. Her words poured out like a forgotten melody. Michael, I don't know if this letter will ever reach you. You disappeared so fast. One moment we were talking about the future, and the next, your mother said you'd left town. I've been walking down to the lake each night, sitting where we used to sit. You once told me that if I ever missed you, I should just look at the stars. Well, I do, but it's not the same without you beside me. Maybe you left because of your father, or maybe because of me. If it's the latter, I'm sorry. I know I said things I didn't mean, but I loved you, Michael. I still do. If by some miracle you read this, come back to me, even just for one day. Always yours, Mary Ellen. I read it 3 times. Each time, something new hit harder. Her apology, her hope, that last line, even just for one day. I sat there on the attic floor, the letter pressed to my chest, eyes closed, letting the years crash down around me like waves. What would have happened if I had read this in 1965? Would I have turned around? Would I have married her instead of Ruth? Would we have had children with red hair and stargazer hearts? The questions were pointless, but the ache they left behind was not. I climbed down from the attic slower than I went up. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I'd see her in every corner of my house, as a girl laughing in the kitchen, running barefoot through sprinklers, sitting beside me on the porch swing. Eventually, curiosity won out over fear. I needed to know if she was still alive. I started where everyone starts these days, the internet. Google led me to a marriage license. Mary Ellen Harper became Mary Ellen Dawson in 1972. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. At least she'd had a life. A few more clicks and I found her husband's obituary. He'd passed 10 years ago. 2 children survived him. Digging deeper, I found an article from a local library newsletter. Poetry and Pie, an evening with Mary Ellen Dawson, retired English teacher. A photo accompanied it, and there she was. Older, yes, wrinkles around her eyes. But that smile, it hadn't changed. Not one bit. The article mentioned she still gave poetry readings every Thursday at 3 p.m. It was Tuesday. I couldn't sleep the next night. What would I say to her? Sorry I left without a word? Sorry I never wrote? Thanks for the letter that could have changed my whole life? By Thursday morning, I still didn't have the answers. But I shaved, dressed in my best shirt, and got in the car. The library was in a small town 2 hours south. Brick building, American flag out front. Kids playing on the lawn. I parked heart pounding and walked inside. Her voice hit me before I saw her. Soft, measured, still with that honey-sweet lilt. She was standing at the front of the room, reading aloud. Time doesn't ask for forgiveness. It simply moves, like wind through tall grass, like faces in dreams. But sometimes it gives us back the things we thought were gone. She finished a polite applause. Then she turned and saw me. Our eyes locked. For a second, the world went quiet. She took a step forward. Then another. Michael, she said, voice trembling. I nodded, tears burning my eyes. Hello, Mary Ellen. She stood in front of me, barely a foot away now. Her eyes shimmered with something between disbelief and recognition. It was as if we were both 19 again, standing under the stars behind Thompson's barn, holding our breath because neither of us wanted the moment to end. I smiled. You haven't changed a bit. She laughed, soft and unsteady. You're a terrible liar. And then she stepped forward and hugged me. Not one of those polite, awkward hugs. No, it was a kind of embrace that says, I missed you for a lifetime, even if the words never leave your lips. We stood like that, frozen in time, while the rest of the world spun around us. We went to a small cafe down the street. She ordered chamomile tea. I got coffee, black, though I secretly wanted something sweet just to calm the nerves. For a while, we just sat, smiling, studying each other's faces like they were maps from a country we thought we'd lost. Finally, she broke the silence. So the letter, I nodded, found in the attic. It had been tucked away in a chest roof, and I stored after we moved. I never even knew it existed. She looked down at her hands. I never heard from you. For years, I thought you got it and chose to stay gone. I didn't, I said. If I had... I trailed off. What could I say? That I would have come running back? That I wouldn't have married Ruth? That maybe, just maybe, we'd be sitting in this cafe 50 years earlier with our lives stretched out ahead instead of mostly behind? It's all right, she whispered, reading my silence. We can't change the past. No, I agreed, but maybe we can still honor it. We talked for hours. About her marriage, kind, steady, simple. She'd taught high school English for 32 years. Raised 2 children. Lost her husband to a heart attack one quiet Sunday morning. About Ruth, my rock, my best friend. About our 2 boys, our move to Nebraska, her long illness, and the quiet way she said goodbye. There was no jealousy, no bitterness. Just 2 people, older now, who had lived long enough to know that life doesn't always follow the script you imagined. But still, it writes beautiful pages anyway. You remember that night we watched the meteor shower? She asked, under the big oak tree behind the lake. I grinned. You told me every falling star was a wish that got tired of waiting. And you said you'd name one after me. I think I still would. She smiled, and I could see tears forming. Do you regret it, Michael? She asked suddenly. Leaving? Not finding your way back sooner. I took a deep breath. Sometimes. Not because I didn't live a good life. I did. But because there was a version of me that stayed. That wrote back. That kissed you goodbye properly. I wonder about him sometimes. She nodded slowly. So do I. As the sun dipped low outside the cafe window, painting the walls with golden light, we both sat quietly. She reached into her purse and pulled out a worn photograph. It was the two of us, summer of '64, barefoot, smiling, young, wild with hope. I kept this all these years, she said. Every time I moved, it was the first thing I packed. I touched the edge of the photo, my fingers trembling. We were beautiful, I said. We were a beginning, she replied, even if we didn't get to be the middle. That night, I stayed in town. Got a room at the old inn near the train station. Same one I left from all those years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. I lay awake most of the night, staring at the ceiling, feeling both full and hollow at the same time. What do you do when life hands you a second chance? But 50 years too late. The next morning we met again. She brought me coffee this time. 2 sugars, no cream, just the way I liked it back then. I remembered, she said, smiling. We walked to the lake. Yes, that lake. The dock was older now, a little warped. The trees were taller, but the air still carried the scent of wildflowers and water. We sat on the bench. I come here often, she said. Helps me think. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. Sometimes silence between old friends says more than 1,000 words ever could. Eventually I asked, "What now?" She took my hand gently in hers. "I don't know," she said, "but I'd like to find out, one Thursday at a time." We spent the rest of the day walking through the town, just like we used to. Mary Ellen showed me where the old record store used to be, and I told her stories about how I used to sneak out to meet her by the soda fountain. Some buildings had changed, but the sidewalks still remembered our footsteps. That evening, her daughter invited me to dinner. At first, I hesitated. I didn't want to intrude, but Mary Ellen placed her hand on mine and said, "They know all about you, Michael." I told them stories over the years. They already love you a little. So I said yes. Underscore, 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 underscore. Her daughter, Julia, reminded me of Mary Ellen at that age, full of life, warm-hearted, sharp-tongued in the best way. Her son, Daniel, was quieter, thoughtful, polite. They made roast chicken and sweet potatoes, and someone put on old records in the background. At one point, Julia pulled out a photo album and laid it on the table. In it were pictures of Mary Ellen's life, her wedding, the babies, the camping trips, the students she'd mentored, and in one of the pockets, a folded piece of paper. It was a printout of the letter. She kept it with her, Julia said, all these years. I found it once when I was a teenager. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I remember reading it and wondering who this man was. Mary Ellen chuckled. He was a boy who ran away, and a man who came back when it mattered. I couldn't speak, just smiled, grateful to be remembered that way. Over the next few weeks, I kept coming back every Thursday. Sometimes we went to the lake. Sometimes we sat in the library, side by side, listening to other people's words because ours were already said in silence. We didn't try to make up for lost time. We just shared what we had left. There was something quietly beautiful about it. One Sunday, as autumn leaves began to turn, she handed me a small wrapped package. "It's nothing big," she said. "Just something I want you to have." Inside was a leather journal. On the first page, in her elegant handwriting, it read, "To Michael, For all the words we never got to say, and all the Thursdays we still can. I swallowed hard, blinking back tears. I opened the next page, and it was blank. A new beginning. In November, I sold the house. The attic was finally empty. I kept Ruth's veil, some photos, and, of course, the letter. But the rest, it was time to let go. I moved to her town. Got a little place a few streets from the library. Nothing fancy, just enough for one man and his memories. And maybe, someday, her slippers beside mine. Sometimes, we still talk about the past, about what might have been. But mostly we talk about what is. Like how the sky still looks best just after sunset. How pie still tastes better stolen. And how, in the end, a single letter, forgotten, dusty, nearly lost of time, brought two hearts back to a place they thought they'd never return. Final words, voiceover. Life doesn't always give us the perfect story, but sometimes it gives us a second page. And if you're lucky, like me, you'll still find someone waiting at the other end of an old letter. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments. Have you ever been given a second chance? In love, in friendship, in life? Subscribe for more stories that stir the soul every Thursday evening.